so you're building BAXUS, which is a peer-to-peer marketplace, making it easy for anyone to buy, sell, trade, and vault fine spirits. Yeah, maybe Winnie, before we jump to Tzvi, do you want to kind of share why you guys got so excited about BAXUS?
Yeah, we invested in BAXUS earlier this year, and I think their long-term vision that we got pretty excited about is kind of how do you bring a asset class that is physical goods with whiskey and bring it on chain, and what does that mean when you add crypto native principles and it's kind of authenticated, it's brought to blockchain, and what does that mean from a financial perspective? What are other financial products you can build around that, around this alcohol industry that's already really big? So why we're personally very excited is internally at Strobe, we have a huge thesis called the unbundling of Sotheby's. Similar to kind of Craigslist, that's been famously unbundled to different verticals like Airbnb, Uber, right? Like we have physical goods, marketplaces, Etsy. We believe Sotheby's will be unbundled in the same way. And whiskeys, wine, spirits are kind of some of the verticals. And BAXUS is obviously one of the large ones within the whiskey space. So I'll let Tzvi give an overview about what BAXUS is. But overall, we're pretty excited about this category as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah, so you want to go into any more color on how the product works today? Just keep going. Yeah.
No, I love hearing you talk about whiskey because I think that's honestly what we wrote in the memo is like, I've never seen someone so enamored and so in love and has so much history on the history of whiskey. So I will let you do it.
Was literally used like between, the settlers who were moving out west and finding ways to preserve their grain. They turned it into whiskey and they used it to trade up and down like the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. And then Alexander Hamilton decided, we need a federal, national bank. And so we're going to tax all these guys whiskey. Led to a rebellion. George Washington, put back on the spurs and put that down. But it really, really emphasizes, I think, one of the truly unique things about not just physical collectibles and things that retain value. I mean, there's a lot of, poetic things I can about whiskey and like why I have such an appreciation for it. But just this idea of like, again, our original concepts around like proof of work and something that's fun, like it has an element of fungibility and an element of non-fungibility, like at the release level. And so this year's vintage of a particular wine or this year's vintage or release of a particular whiskey or a single barrel, sure, there might be 200 bottles that come out of a barrel. I don't mind swapping one for the other. But when those 200 bottles are gone, they're gone. They're gone from the face of the earth, never really truly be recreated. And so that creates this whole secondary market dynamic around collectability, around tradability, around people actually like the utility. It's one of the things that makes like wine and spirits so interesting is that like the utility is effectively the burning of the asset. Like in order to enjoy yes, you can look at it, you can stare at it. Like that's kind of the little bit of the difference, I think, between all of these other collectibles is that like the utility is playing the Pokemon, like playing Pokemon.
Like consumption of the whiskey. Yeah. Like you actually,
exactly
burned and it's gone. Yeah. What has been
What
has been some of the more interesting things that you've seen on BAXUS on the consumer level because of this unique dynamic that maybe is surprising or that, was expected?
Yeah. So that's like kind of a great example is that there are certain bottles that we've done like BAXUS barrel picks, we pick an exclusive that we assumed, people would just buy to consume. They were lower price points, sub $100. And what we found was, and this is again, part of the thing that I love about it is people who bought one tended to come back and buy a second because they bought it. They most of them, like our goal for those is to get redeemed for people to actually try them. But then after they try it, they're like, okay, this was good or really good. And this is something that I want to make sure I have a second of because there were only 140 something bottles. And so if it disappears, and that was kind of cool because now I understand, having witnessed it like firsthand where this comes from. Like some of these bottles now that trade for hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars were actually like, there's one bottle in particular that comes to mind. Trades for $20,000-$30,000 a bottle, like at the peak of the market. And it was an 150-pound bottle when it was originally released. Like it was not designed to become a super collectible. It was designed to be good whiskey that was consumed, and people did a good job at that. And there are so few left that the collectors now have to race to get it. So it's cool to actually get to produce something also and kind of see the market exploring it in real time. And you can almost figure that out because there are some bottles where people do buy them and they don't rush back to buy a second.
Yeah.
Maybe because of whether it's the flavor profile or just because they're like, okay, this was good, but it's not life-changing. I don't think that this is going to be a bottle that people seek out in 10, 20 years.
Right. I feel like it's also the kind of thing where like once you have one starting to like build out your collection is kind of fun. I've had this experience with Pokemon cards. You buy, it's like I've never really cared, and then you buy a couple, and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. I only have 2. That's a pretty shitty collection. I should buy more.
Yeah, one of the other things that we found that we had always, when we started building this, one of our core tenets was always that like BAXUS has to be built for the non-crypto user. It has to be built so that my grandmother can log on and use the platform, and thank you, she does, which is really fun. But that was how it was designed, because so much of the whiskey world, like it exists. There's like a $2 trillion market out there of wine and spirits and these things that are trading, and it's being done. And when we talk about like, oh, banking is old school, or like the SWIFT system is old school, like there are wine ledgers that are still literally handwritten, like for trades. So I don't like old school doesn't even begin to like address the market that we're dealing with.
I infiltrated some of these like WhatsApp groups and Facebook marketplace groups when I was looking at BAXUS, and I was like deep in the forums. And yes, it's a very antiquated process. That's people are like trading tens of thousands of dollars of these very esoteric whiskeys on random groups.
Right. And it's like, let me send you a PayPal or a Venmo or whatever, and then hope that you actually ship me the bottle. So that's the other part, is like the whole trust mechanism around this also. But we actually just had this with BAXUS. It was like crazy, and it worked out. But some guy who sent us bottles, signed up, was selling them. And then, the nice part is your USDC is all on the back end, but it goes into your account, and then you can just off ramp through Plaid directly to your bank. He literally was like, I use a credit union. Like my bank doesn't incorporate with Plaid. We're like, okay, let's try this. Okay, let's try this again. So turns out he does have PayPal, because he had traded whiskey before. So that was the most financially advanced he had ever gotten. But we showed him how he could send us like, okay, so send the USDC back. We'll set we can send it on PayPal, like the payment or whatever. And then this guy, who again was an older gentleman living, in the area, like all of a sudden is now sending USDC on Solana, like is entering a wallet address and sending it in. Like we have had users that we always expected that the crypto crowd was going to kind of stay the crypto crowd. They might get into the whiskey either because it's, something that they can flex, or because it's something that they actually know. They might actually be a whiskey fan, or, one of the very popular things is around the holiday season, we see it for gifting. So many people's, their dad, their uncles, their grandfathers, their moms, like they like whiskey or wine or like rare stuff. And so they're like, hey, here's something I can actually do that my dad will appreciate, that I'm doing with this magical internet money that he sees me constantly talking about. So we see a lot of that stuff where, again, sending a gift is as easy as like giving an email, and then like all of a sudden your dad gets an email, like the way that PayPal did with money, like, hey, you've got $1, you've got a bottle of whiskey, and it's sitting there waiting for you to just redeem it. But the crazy thing that we found was, because when you can pay with credit card, obviously we had to make it really native, but we also emphasize, if you pay with crypto, you don't pay the credit card fees. And what we've noticed, which we were not expecting, was the number of our regular buyers and consumers who asked us how they can on-ramp to USDC, who actually became crypto users, because the funds are only sitting in their BAXUS account. It's, a wallet spun up on the back end. They don't need external wallets and all the DeFi, like that doesn't interest them. But what does interest them is saving 3.5% on, the thousands of dollars they're spending on whiskey on the platform. So that was really cool also, is that like we actually have successfully started to see this bridge where crypto people are starting to buy things that interest them outside of the crypto world. Either, again, we don't know for all of them, some of them as I want this, some of them as assets that they're holding for long term. But even more important and exciting, and I think really kind of indicates where the future is heading, is non-crypto people who would never touch crypto, they have no other reason in their life to touch it, are now willing to get involved because there is something there that they want, that they're saving money or getting access to. And that's always been kind of one of our key theories, is that like you have to give them something that they want, otherwise there's no reason to show up.
100%.
Yeah,
you got to meet people where they are, right? Like there's only it's a very small subset of the population will ever trade meme coins, but there's something that everyone cares about that crypto can improve. How are you thinking about the big opportunity here? Is it bring kind of all these informal markets together and modernize them, or do you see whiskey being like a core part of everyone's like asset portfolio in the future?
Yeah, so I'll say for BAXUS, let's say, I think it'll be the latter. It's really, we looked when we first got started, and this is, the beauty and doe-eyed young, first-time founders on that regard. Like Carrie and I, when we first started in 2021, we're like, yeah, we're going to nail down the whiskey market in 6 to 9 months. And then we're going to do watches and sneakers and and we're like, right, okay, that's not how the real world works. Like you need to really, really dig in and figure it out. but what we also realized is that because of the beauty of on-chain and the interoperability and the composability is that like we actually really can become specialists in our field. We don't need to be doing every single asset class. Let somebody else do it, to the point where Collector Crypt, who does, trading cards and stuff. So they did these really cool releases for Magic the Gathering artist proofs. They work with the artist. I'm a huge nerd. I love Magic the Gathering. I wanted those cards, and I missed the drop. So I traded somebody on chain. I traded him a bottle of whiskey for his card. And I'm like, that is what I want the economy to look like. Like, that's what I want things to be, like that barter system where the trustlessness, like the guy lives in Canada. I don't have to worry about getting the bottle to him. And like, I mean, I do because of BAXUS, but like that's on BAXUS to then work with him. Same thing with my card.
Do you send him the NFT?
Yeah, we just ended up doing a swap because I knew who he was. Like originally we were going to use Foxy Swap. I think we either used him or maybe Mert may have actually just we kind of chose him to be the intermediary or something. like we're like, Mert, congrats, you're now officially handling this swap to make sure we both get our tokens. But yeah, it was basically just we transfer the NFTs, and that's what made it so cool. Was I now have complete ownership and of this card and like the ability to redeem it at any time from the collector vault, and he has ownership of this bottle and the ability to redeem it at any time from BAXUS. And again, to me, that's like I'm actually more excited for the on-chain barter economy to take off because again, like I've done this before. Like I'm a collector by nature. I collect things. I like different types of things. And so you end up finding groups where there's overlap. Like the guys who collect watches, some of them are also into wine or whiskey. Some of the whiskey guys are into Pokemon. Some of the guys, like they're in all these different places. And like the idea that instead of me having to go and, okay, take a bottle and sell it for cash because I want to go and, buy this watch from someone, I can find someone, or even better yet, especially with on-chain components, the system itself, like the chain itself can go and eventually measure intents and be like, okay, we're going to take Todd's bottle and we're going to take Tzvi. Sorry, I'm like referring to I'm like so not used to people actually calling me Tzvi, which is great. So we're going to take Tzvi's bottle and swap it with, this guy is going to pay, he wants that bottle, and this guy has the watch and like just actually all happen within a contract. So back to your point, yeah, I genuinely believe, like, if you look at like the wine and spirits industry, you look at how they operate. Yes, they have their own ebbs and flows, their own ups and downs, but they already have a tremendous amount of private capital that's poured in. But again, it's not available to the public. Like
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's not available to the public. Like they don't have access to the opportunities, and that's why you saw. And part of that is the issue. The reason why some of the distilleries now you're hearing about shutdowns and slowdowns is because there was too much capital and not enough information flowing in. So all of these family offices and private equity funds and hedge funds were all investing in, but there was no public way to see how much whiskey is being produced, how much is being consumed. And so I look at this as like our Ray Dalio chicken market opportunity. Like when you can create a futures market, it doesn't just help you think about it as a financial instrument, but now whiskey producers can actually hedge future prices and production, produce better whiskey with more intention. Because one thing that makes, whiskey and wine also, but really it emphasizes whiskey so unique is you can only make a 30-year-old single malt with 30 years. Like there's nothing else you can do that will make it 30 years old. And so you need to be forecasting not, we're going to need more iPhones next quarter. It's like, yeah, we're going to need more whiskey in 30 years. So we better make it now and stick it in a warehouse. It creates a really, really cool opportunity. And then as far as where we want to go, because there is, as I mentioned, this like $2 trillion entire vertical there, we want to integrate fully up the stack. So we want it to be that if you're a distillery that produced whiskey today and isn't going to bottle it for 30 years, we want to tap you into the DeFi market so that you can borrow against your whiskey that's sitting in your warehouse, so that now you can capitalize your business while you're waiting 30 years effectively for these bonds to mature.
Interesting.
How do you tell when you're talking to those folks, how do you explain DeFi to them?
Okay. To be honest, for most of them, we don't. We're just like, the idea is just, we have people who will lend you money and they get that is enough for them because they're like, okay, like what are the requirements and stuff. Some of them who are more technologically savvy are really excited by it because they start thinking about what are the unique products we can develop that would appeal specifically to this crowd. So I can't say which one, but we spoke to a couple of distilleries that are interested in effectively, based on, let's say, we're on Solana, based on the chains, like they're interested in potentially doing some sort of like Solana or asset treasury, like pre-selling barrels in Sol or in other things and like staking it to support the network, like using the yield to pay, like doing like really interesting things but there's always been this. The best description I ever heard about the whiskey market came from a family that's owned their distillery for 3 or 4 generations, and they said there's 2 types of whiskey distilleries. There's farmers and there's bankers, and so those are the 2 types that exist. The bankers are definitely, and the distilleries run by bankers are much more in tune to DeFi, but historically have already figured out like, okay, we can get better access to banks and figured out their own financial products. It's the ones that lean more towards the farmer type that are the ones that have more trouble like actually getting the capital set up. And so it's a cool opportunity to figure out which of the farmers are like actually, they're mentally wired like bankers. And now they're like, okay, wait a second, we can actually really grow our business and like really fix our capital structure here.
Now they'll just farm in DeFi. They'll just be DeFi farmers. From whiskey farmers to DeFi farmers.
Yeah. Well, Tzvi, we're gonna have to let you go here, man. So there's a bunch of, I was scrolling through the site this morning. There's a ton of whiskey, way more than I could even comprehend what to do with. So I recommend, if this is interesting, it's baxus.co, right? Is that the site?
Yeah, baxus.co.
Go check baxus.co out.
Yeah, and I will just say, because kind of to this point of gifting, just one quick thing before I go. But I mean, this is the cool part about crypto is this weekend, some guy was like, hey, did really well in the market, want to buy someone who I owe a really big favor to, or like a gift, like want to buy him a bottle. And I'm like, okay, great. You know, he's like, what do you have that's around like $100,000? And I'm like, oh, okay. Like you did really well in the market. Like I'm sitting here like, you know, great. I just made 3 sold on something. And so he just literally pops in with USDC and just snagged the bottle for almost $100,000, just like that. Like no credit card, no transactions, and it's being delivered to him today. Like we had a guy in our private client team like hop on a plane and just bring it down. So it's like very cool again how like you can see these things where instead of it being like, oh no, we have to worry about this random credit card and whether it's going to be charged back, and like what crypto enables for like the instantaneity, and on a weekend somebody could settle in $100,000 payment instantly and have the asset. We're gonna see a lot more whiskey in people's portfolios and Robinhood accounts very soon.
Love it. Yeah, super sick product. I think you're taking a smart approach to it too. Like, you know, own the marketplace. The DeFi opportunities will present themselves if you own the consumer relationships and have a bunch of whiskey fans paying attention. So pumped to keep following along, and I'll be buying some whiskey.
I was gonna say, let me know what you want. We'll drop.
I'm gonna need some help. So
perfect.
I'll hit you up.
Happy to help.
Sick. Thanks for jumping on, man.
Thanks for having me.